The night started like any other, one bad decision leading to another. I wasn't even supposed to be at the underground auction, but my best friend had convinced me. Come on, Veyron. It's just for fun, he'd said, grinning like an idiot. I should have known better. The place was hidden beneath an old warehouse, buzzing with whispers and flickering neon signs. Illegal trade of all kinds happened here, rare tech, alien artifacts, and even people. Not my kind of thing. I was just here to watch, not to participate. But then I saw her. Caged behind reinforced glass stood an alien woman, unlike anything I'd ever seen. Her skin shimmered in the low light, shifting between deep violet and soft silver. Her large, luminescent eyes locked onto mine, filled with something I couldn't name. A voice boomed over the speakers. Starting bid, 100,000 credits. I wasn't rich. Hell, I could barely afford rent. But before I knew what was happening, my hand shot up. 150. My heart pounded. What was I doing? I wasn't planning to buy an alien, let alone sold. The gavel slammed down. The moment felt surreal. And that's when my real troubles began. Finished thinking. I was taken to a back room where a guy with a cybernetic eye handed me a biometric tablet. The contract was long, full of fine print I didn't bother reading. I just pressed my thumb against the scanner, my brain still struggling to process what I had just done. The moment the door to her containment cell opened, the alien woman stepped forward, her strange, shimmering eyes locked onto mine. She moved gracefully, like liquid silver, and stopped only inches away from me. You are my master now, she said, her voice smooth and layered, like two people speaking at once. I swallowed hard. No. That's not how this works. She tilted her head slightly. You paid for me. My life is now yours. Guilt twisted in my gut. I didn't mean to. I exhaled sharply. Listen, I don't want a slave. You're free. Her expression didn't change. No. I blinked. What? She took another step forward, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. She wasn't human, but she didn't feel entirely alien either. Something about her presence was familiar, yet completely unknown. I will stay with you, she said. I ran a hand through my hair. You don't have to do that. She reached out, touching my chest lightly with her fingertips. The contact sent a strange shiver through me, like static electricity mixed with warmth. I choose to. I didn't know what to say to that. What's your name? I asked instead. She hesitated. The traders called me Latari. Her expression darkened slightly. I do not want that name anymore. I nodded. All right. Then what do you want to be called? She looked at me like I had just asked her something impossible. Slowly, her lips parted. I do not know. I rubbed the back of my neck. How about Celera? Her glowing eyes softened, as if she was tasting the word in her mind. Celera, she echoed. Yes. I like this name. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Then Celera, it is. She studied me for a long moment, then spoke again. You are kind. I let out a short laugh. I don't know about that. I just don't think people should be bought and sold. Celera tilted her head. Then why did you bid for me? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Why had I done it? It wasn't like I had planned to. But when I'd seen her standing there behind that glass, something inside me had reacted. I don't know, I admitted. It just felt wrong to leave you there. She nodded, as if that answer satisfied her. I sighed. All right, let's get out of here before I regret all of this. She followed me without hesitation, walking beside me like a shadow. As we stepped out into the cool night air, I glanced at her. You really don't have to stay, you know. She simply smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent a strange warmth curling in my chest. I will stay, she murmured, because now you are mine. Bringing Celera home was an experience. She moved through my tiny apartment like she was stepping onto an alien world. Her fingers traced over the fabric of my couch, her luminous eyes scanning every object with quiet fascination. She sniffed my coffee, wrinkling her nose, then poked the lamp switch, startled when the light flicked on. "This is where you live?" she finally asked, running her hands over the kitchen counter like she was committing its texture to memory. "Yeah," I said, rubbing the back of my neck. "Not much, I know." She turned to me, tilting her head. "It is so warm." I chuckled. "That's one way to put it." Then her gaze landed on my bed. She walked over and pressed her palm to the blanket, watching the way the fabric moved beneath her touch. "This is where you sleep?" I hesitated. "Yeah." Celera glanced back at me. "Then I will sleep here as well." I nearly choked. Humans don't usually." She sat on the edge of the bed, watching me with that same unreadable expression. "We do not need to mate. We may simply share warmth." My brain short-circuited for a second. "Okay, first of all, wow. Second of all, you can take the bed. I'll crash on the couch." She frowned. "Why?" "Because," I said, rubbing my face, "it's weird for strangers to sleep next to each other." Celera studied me, then stood, stepping closer. Her movements were slow, deliberate. "We are not strangers, Veron." I swallowed. "We kind of are." Her eyes shimmered with something I couldn't quite name. "You saved me, and I have chosen to stay. That is a bond." Her words sent a strange heat curling in my chest. I cleared my throat. "Still, I'll take the couch." She let out a soft breath, then nodded. "If that is what you wish." Crisis averted. For now. The next few days were odd. Celera followed me everywhere, moving silently, watching everything I did. If I went to the kitchen, she was there. If I sat on the couch, she sat beside me. If I grabbed a book, she leaned in to read over my shoulder. At one point, I turned to her with a sigh. "Do you have to watch me all the time?" She blinked. "Yes." "Why?" She tilted her head, considering. "Because you are mine." I groaned. "We really need to work on your phrasing." She smiled, a small, knowing smile. I was doomed. One evening, as I was flipping through the news on my tablet, Celera sat cross-legged on the floor, watching me. "Veron," she said suddenly. I looked up. "Yeah." She hesitated, then asked, "Do you regret taking me?" The question caught me off guard. I set my tablet down. "No," I said honestly. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "Good." I studied her for a moment. "What about you? Do you regret staying?" Celera met my gaze, her glowing eyes steady. "No," she said softly. Something about the way she said it made my heartbeat stutter. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. "Celera, you are free, you know. You don't have to stay just because you feel like you owe me." She stood, stepping closer. "I do not stay because of a debt." "Then why?" Her fingers brushed lightly against my wrist, barely touching, just enough to send a shiver up my arm. "Because I want to." I swallowed hard, my pulse quickening. Celera smiled again, soft, unreadable. Then she turned and walked away, leaving me staring after her. I had no idea what I'd gotten myself into. Things didn't stay peaceful for long. It started with a bad feeling, a prickling at the back of my neck whenever I left the apartment. The sense that we were being watched. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then one night, everything changed. I was washing dishes when Celera suddenly tensed. Her eyes flickered, her posture shifting into something sharp, predatory. "Someone is here." A second later, my front door exploded inward. I barely had time to react before a group of men in black combat gear stormed in, guns raised. The same kind of guys who had run the auction. Celera moved before I could even process what was happening. She grabbed me and spun us behind the kitchen counter as bullets tore through the air. My heart pounded in my chest. "Stay down," she commanded, her voice eerily calm. One of the men rushed toward us, but Celera was faster. She darted forward, catching his wrist before he could fire. With terrifying ease, she twisted, flipping him over her shoulder and slamming him into the floor. Another man aimed his gun at her. I barely had time to shout before she lunged. In the blink of an eye, she was behind him, gripping his throat. "Veron is mine," she hissed. The last guy bolted. Celera turned back to me, her chest rising and falling quickly. I stared at her, my pulse racing. I swallowed. That was. Her glowing eyes locked onto mine. "You are unharmed?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, thanks to you." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. She stepped closer, reaching out as if to touch me, but hesitated. Instead, she curled her fingers into a fist and exhaled. "They will come again," she murmured. "They do not let go of their possessions so easily." I ran a hand through my hair. "You're not their possession, Celera." Her gaze softened. "No," she agreed. "I am yours." I opened my mouth, then shut it again. The way she said it wasn't like before. There was no weight of dead in her tone, only something else. Something deeper. I exhaled. "We need to leave. If they know where we are, it's not safe here." Celera nodded. "I will protect you." I blinked. Pretty sure I'm supposed to say that. She gave me a small, knowing smile. A warmth curled in my chest despite the chaos. She wasn't just protecting herself anymore. She was protecting us. We left the apartment that same night, slipping through the back alleys under the cover of darkness. Celera moved like a ghost, silent and alert, her shimmering eyes scanning every shadow. I wasn't as graceful. I nearly tripped over a loose piece of concrete twice. "Where are we even going?" I whispered. Celera didn't slow down. "Somewhere safe." I wasn't sure what that meant, but I trusted her. We ended up in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. The place smelled like rust and old oil, but at least it had 4 walls and a roof. "We should rest," she said, glancing at me. "You are tired." I let out a dry laugh. "No kidding." She knelt beside me, her gaze softer than before. "You are afraid." I looked at her, then sighed. "Of course I'm afraid. Those guys won't stop coming." Celera reached out, hesitated, then finally touched my face. Her fingers were warm, her touch gentle. "I will not let them take you," she said quietly. Something about the way she said it made my breath catch. I swallowed hard. "Celera?" Her eyes searched mine. "You saved me, Veron. But I did not stay with you because of that. I stayed because I want to." I felt something shift in the air between us, something deep and unspoken. Before I could stop myself, I reached up, covering her hand with mine. "Celera," I said again, softer this time. She leaned in, her face inches from mine. Her breath was warm, her presence overwhelming. "You are mine," she whispered, "and I am yours." I didn't know who moved first, but suddenly, we weren't just sitting there anymore. Her lips brushed mine, hesitant at first, then firmer when I didn't pull away. A shiver ran down my spine. Her touch wasn't just warm, it was electric. She pulled back slightly, her eyes glowing in the dim light. Was that acceptable? I let out a shaky breath. That was more than acceptable. She smiled, a real smile, soft and full of something I hadn't seen before. Hope. For the first time since this whole mess started, I didn't feel like I was running anymore. I had something worth fighting for.
The peace didn't last.
We barely had a few hours of rest before Celera tensed beside me, her gaze snapping toward the entrance of the factory. I felt it too, a shift in the air, the quiet hum of danger creeping closer. "They found us," she murmured. I cursed under my breath.
"How?"
She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed my wrist and pulled me behind a stack of old crates just as the doors burst open. The same black-clad men stormed in, weapons raised, but this time, they weren't alone. A tall figure strode in behind them, different from the rest. He wasn't human. His skin was dark blue, his eyes black and cold. Celera inhaled sharply. "I know him." I glanced at her. "Who is he?" She gritted her teeth. "The one who sold me." The alien's gaze swept the factory, then landed on our hiding spot. "I know you're there, Lotari," he called out, his voice smooth, cruel. Celera stiffened at the name. "I see you found a pet of your own," he continued, a smirk curling his lips. "How adorable. but you belong to me. Celera stood, stepping into the open before I could stop her. I belong to no one. The alien chuckled. Oh, little one. You still don't understand. He raised a sleek, black device and pressed a button. Celera gasped, her body seizing up. Celera. I shouted, moving toward her. She collapsed to her knees, her breathing ragged. Old failsafes, the alien mused. You may have forgotten, but I never did. Rage burned in my chest. I didn't think, I just moved. I grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and swung. It cracked against the alien's wrist, sending the device skidding across the floor. Celera gasped as the pain left her body. The alien snarled, reaching for me, but Celera was faster. She slammed her fist into his chest, sending him crashing into a stack of crates. The remaining men hesitated, then ran. Celera turned to me, her breath uneven. Are you hurt? I shook my head. Are you? She swallowed, then stepped closer. You attacked him for me. I exhaled, still catching my breath. Of course I did. Her glowing eyes searched mine. Then, without warning, she threw her arms around me, pressing her forehead to mine. You are mine, she whispered, her voice trembling. And I will never let them take you. I held her close, my heart pounding. I'm yours, I murmured back. And you're mine. The words felt right. We weren't just running anymore. We were together. And we weren't going to let anyone take that away.